Welcome to the Architect My Business podcast. I'm Aya Schlachter, your host, founder, and CEO of MGS Global Group. We provide architectural drafting and rendering services for busy firm owners and designers. Recently, we added new services such as bookkeeping and digital marketing. I put aside my dream of being an architect and pivoted to serve architects. Since then, I've never looked back. MGS Global started as a part-time gig when I was a new mom drafting for architects in New York City. Now we serve small to large firms and publicly traded companies in retail and hospitality. The best part? I get to help architects maintain a better work-life balance so they can do more of what matters most. From starting out solo to now leading a team of over 45 and growing, I've learned a thing or two about making a business thrive. Whether you're thinking of starting, already managing, or want to take your business to the next level, this podcast is for you. Each episode is packed with simple, actionable tips in leadership, people, marketing, processes, and of course, profit. I keep things real. Like you, I've got no time for fluff. This podcast is brought to you by MGS Global Group. Now, let's get into this episode. All right, you ready?
Yes.
Welcome to the Architect My Business podcast, a business growth podcast for architects. Today, I'm excited to introduce Jim Cirillo, an amazing person whose journey is as inspiring as it is unconventional. Imagine leaving a stable corporate job with no backup plan, only to redefine success on his own terms. That's Jim for you. From a physics major to an optics engineer, worked in General Motors as his first job, and later on moved to optics industry where he was part of the pioneering teams developing fiber optic components and systems for telecommunications and solid-state lighting. Then taking a leap of faith into the unknown. Now he's not just surviving, he's thriving, working less, earning more, and enjoying the freedom that many of us only dream of, gallivanting around the world, Hong Kong, Philippines, Thailand, Israel, Cuba. I can't keep up. So Jim's story is not just about financial success. It's about passion, innovation, and the courage to reinvent oneself. He also hosts the JimJim's Reinvention Revolution podcast, where he interviews professionals, entrepreneurs who are reinventing themselves and reimagining and pivoting. Did I mention he's also a talented saxophone player? I never know how to introduce Jim. He is a polymath and super interesting and well-rounded, which is really what I admire about him. But here is where it gets really interesting for us architects. Jim's insights have been instrumental in my company's growth, MGS Global Group. We've grown tremendously through Jim's help, through his consulting JIMIUM Group. And this time, I want everyone to pay attention to the three major concepts that Jim has helped me with. I mean, with even like surviving the COVID-19 kind of recession, I suppose, for architects. So he taught me three things and concepts I want to share with you. The first is technology and innovation. Second, business operations. Third, marketing. Teaching us really how to stay ahead in any economy and being competitive in the market. His approach to business, emphasizing innovation, authenticity, and customer-first mindset has been a game changer. So whether you're an architect looking to expand your business or fascinated by the art of reinvention and strategic growth, this episode is for you. Let's dive into the world of Jim Cirillo. Welcome. Whew.
Wow.
Wow.
That was quite an introduction, Aya.
Well, right, like I said, whenever people ask you what you do and I'm there hanging out with you, what do you do?
I don't know. I find it hard to describe myself sometimes. So that's I think you captured a lot there, and that's maybe that's a pro and con, or I don't of marketing myself, but it's I like to do a lot of different things. I have some interesting experience and have been able to challenge myself for better or worse, and whether I wanted to or not sometimes. But I've just used all that experience to find myself where I am here today,
So in 2006, let's go back to 2006.
Oh boy. Okay.
What prompted you to quit your job? Yeah, like the reason I'm asking is because a lot of architects are in the same position. Like I have people asking on all the chat groups, like, I need an alternative career. I'm burning out. Architects make so little, blah, blah, blah. Not that I want architects to leave the profession, but in 2006, what was that pivotal moment that you decided to just quit your job with no plan at all? What was that like?
Yeah, it was it was interesting. So I was, and I liked my job. I mean, I liked what I was doing. So I liked the technology part. I was in advanced engineering development with an optics, expertise, and there's a lot of things going on with the telecom world, solid state lighting world. So this last company that I worked for in 2006 was a solid state lighting company. So this is when LEDs were just starting to get efficient enough, and white light LEDs were starting to be produced where the whole incandescent world was changing and being replaced by solid state lighting. It's pretty interesting. So it's a fun job, but this particular company, it was frustrating. I went from a government contracts manager to a marketing manager and applications manager because, throughout discussions, kind of a small company. I had big company experience. I had experience in one of the tech centers of the United States, being in New England, Boston, working for very fast moving companies up there. And, this company was back in Ohio. They weren't moving as fast, and they didn't have as much experience or vision that I felt I had. So it's kind of frustrating to be there and kind of feel like I'm moving too slow, first of all. But then when they gave me this job, they promoted me, and then I really didn't get any support internally from the company once I got the promotion. It was just bizarre to me. It was just not a great environment to be in. And I guess I'd worked enough years at this point to think like, do I need to be doing this? Like being so frustrated, whatever. But I remember when you said you're going to ask me this question, I really thought back, like really what spawned my idea to quit was I was working a lot, super stressed out, very frustrating, tough work culture. I remember now that there was a friend that I used to live in New England. And so there's a friend I knew. It's like, I needed to get out of town. I needed a little vacation. And we went on vacation in a weird time of year. It was like second week in November, like the holidays were coming. It's like, it's a weird time to take a vacation, but I'd been talking to a friend of mine, and she's like, yeah, let's go somewhere. I'm like, so we went to the Caribbean. Can't remember what island it was, but I remember sitting there, and we were just sitting there hanging out, like doing nothing. Like we're just there for like 3 days, and we were both like working too much or whatever. And we didn't have any plans. We're just sitting there talking and whatever and relaxing. So all the sort of stress is kind of, melting away. And I realized in that moment how unhappy I was. I was like, holy shit. It was like, it must have been 2 years of just working too much, being frustrated, going out with the gang after work, drinking more than I normally would, but not realizing that because it's like, well, that's what the company did because everybody was frustrated, and we'd go out for happy hours like
every night.
Not every night, but like at least probably 2 times a week, definitely on Fridays, and then maybe one other night during the week. And everybody was always up for it. It's like, yeah, let's go. And you didn't realize like, oh, these are just symptoms of not a great, work environment. Anyways, in that moment, that's when I realized, you know what? When I go back, I'm quitting. This is crazy to be this unhappy and to not even realize it. That was what was crazy to me. Wait, how did I even get here? Like, in this sort of, it's like when your lobster in the pot and it's just subtly getting warmer and warmer and warmer. You don't realize before it's too late, then you're dead.
That's a great analogy.
And so I was being slowly boiled, I guess.
Oh my God.
But I had a chance to wake up. So that was really what prompted my choice to leave, without having anything lined up. I had no idea what I was going to do. And I just quit and went to my dream was like, I'm just going to quit and then go sleep on the couch for a couple of days, like I don't have no idea what I'm going to do.
This is what I love about Jim. Like a lot of people are so they like to calculate everything, like how much savings do they have. I mean, you're open to just being a bum and couch surf.
Well, I mean, I had some savings. I mean, I had, I didn't have a family, so maybe there's other issues out there. But for me, it was just like, it was more important to me to get myself out of that situation and be like, you know what, there's other things out there. I'll figure it out. You know what I mean? I didn't know that. I mean, luckily years before I'd kind of encountered a similar situation that had given me some insight. So I'd quit another corporate job when I moved to New England. Which the first time I did it, it was a more severe choice. I think I was scared to death, and people listening out there will probably recognize this. especially like, if you're a high achiever and you go to school and college and do all these things. I hadn't quit anything until I was into my 30s. Okay. I'd gone to school. I was studying music. I played sports. I went to college. I went to grad school. I had the big corporate job, blah, 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 right? There was nothing I'd ever quit in my life. I was determined to just be the best at whatever I was doing, right?
So let's dissect that a little bit. A lot of us architects are the same. We went to 5 years of schooling.
Right.
We spent a lot of time, hustling.
Right.
And, it's really hard to just decide to quit when you're just an action taker and an A-type. So my question for you is your mindset, right? And that's always what's holding everybody back. Let's talk about how you were able to train your mind to do the thing.
Okay, so this is a great question, and this is where I find myself today even more interested in diving into mindset. So early on, for better or for worse, like this first job I quit when I was in New England, again, the company was so severe. I was super excited to go to this company, get into the telecom world and whatever, and it was a very small company, kind of backwards, chaos. I mean, I understand that's sort of that environment of startups and stuff, but I had known too much working for a larger organization by this point, and it was just like, oh my gosh, you could just see the writing on the wall, whatever, and it was so chaotic that it was like it forced me to quit, basically. Now, not everybody has that luxury, and not everybody thinks that's a luxury in the moment, but it really was. It really was. And so like it forced me to confront the fear I had. And it's like, I'm quitting. I didn't get fired. I quit. And it was like, all the things that run through your mind, like, will I ever be able to get a job again? Do I have enough money? I just moved. This is when I was younger. I didn't have any money, much money that back then, I'm like calculating how many months if, the worst case scenario, of like, can I stay out of work for 6 months? Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Luckily at this time it was the tech scene was thriving, and, recruiters were just calling me left and right. So I felt there was a little bit less risk, but I felt like I really screwed up my career. I screwed up my life somehow. But I was forced to do it. I felt it was so severe. But that gave me that little bit of insight to realize, wait, I did this and I didn't die. Nothing super bad happened. And I didn't work for a year. I stayed out of work for a year. It's like I wasn't ready to go back. And when I was ready to go back, I just called some recruiters, whatever, found a job. It was like nothing to find a new job for me, whatever. I was in the tech world. Maybe that's just unique to the tech world. But that was a little bit of insight. And so when it came around to the last job I had in 2006, I had already done that. And so my mindset was already shifted a bit. And even being part of the management team of that company and talking to the people that were there, it's like I was trying to describe to them like, whatever you guys are telling me that I need to do, or do it this way, do it that way, or this consequence is going to happen to me, my mind had already shifted. And that it's like, the worst case scenario is you fire me, right? Like, I already went through sort of that thing. I mean, they didn't fire me. I ended up quitting because it was like, you know what? I realized this is stupid. This is dumb to like be so frustrated in life. And I loved working in these technologies and stuff, but I just couldn't find the right company to work for, I guess, to fit in with, and maybe that's partially me, partially the technology. I don't know what it was. But anyways, the mindset part and it developed even further, okay, once I quit that second time. And that's like, I really had no idea what I was going to do, but I was determined now not to take another job until I really sort of reflected and figured out, what am I doing? Because, I got into this higher tech world from the bigger corporate world, small company moving faster. And again, I love the technologies, but then the environment I wasn't matching up with the environment. It was too
toxic.
It ended up being toxic, but I think it was because of the experience of the people involved and the sort of small-mindedness, and it's like, I have this bigger vision. I have a more positive growth mindset, or whatever you might call it.
Yeah.
And that was a real rub with some of these people within these companies. And it's like when you get to this management level, whatever, and you're like, we have to see this as a growth opportunity. It's not about infighting and political and whatever. It's like, you're a small organization. Like, most people in these small companies, they act as if they're in a big company.
Yeah.
It's like, you don't understand. There's nothing that's that highest stakes here within this small company that you should be acting this way.
Yeah.
Okay. If you're like an executive VP of Google or something, okay, your behavior maybe makes a little more sense that you're so worried about being attacked and this and that. But it was beyond me. So anyways,
So yeah.
go
Yeah.
ahead. Sorry. What were you gonna say?
No, I just love that you're not a victim. People always blame other people. You just left and did your own thing. I mean,
it's like, maybe it's me. I don't know, but I have to figure this out.
well, we know it's you because not you. You're amazing. I mean, you have, your mindset is really strong, which is really why I wanted to touch before we go on to the business part.
Yeah.
You cannot be successful as a business person without the mindset that you have. And I just want to go back to a story you told me. I think it also says so much about you when you went to Jim is a saxophone player. Amazing. To say the least. Okay. That's an understatement. But anyway, that you just got thrown in, you went to the wrong gig and then you had no idea what was going on. It's like you just kind of figure it out.
I remember this story. Yeah, this is kind of an interesting thing. Again, it's sort of like these little nuggets or flashes. If you pay attention to them over the years, you start to realize, wait a second. And you can really sort of shift your mind and think differently about things. So again, I had just gotten out of grad school. It was my first job out of college. And I still wanted to play music, and I had to figure out a way to continue to play music. And I wasn't sure because of how to do it, because I didn't go to music school or whatever. I just like playing music, so like I'm in a new town. I don't know anybody, whatever. So I started taking some lessons from a local guy. It's like, I want to get better. Everything I do, I like to progress on. Anyways, so he's like, hey, and I like jazz improvisation, so that's, I guess, important to the story here. And so he's like, hey, so he was teaching me. We're working on some things. He's like, hey, I know this band. They're really cool. They play on Wednesday nights. They have a Wednesday night gig, and they let people sit in. And he's like, you go down there and sit in with these guys, and they know me. Tell them I said hi. I'm like, wow, cool, okay. So that gave me, I guess, a little bit of confidence or whatever, a reason to go down and kind of just experience this. And I was super afraid. I'd never sat in with a band before.
This
never
is the
asked
first
to sit
time.
in. It wasn't the first time. Like when I was like 15, this happened, like with another teacher that I had. But this was a new city. This was like, I'm more mature now, and I there's more impact to your actions now. You sort of understand a little bit more. When you're a kid, you don't even know what you're doing, So I was like, this is kind of scary to just introduce yourself to a new band and say, hey, can I sit in? I had no idea how they were gonna look at me, and I wasn't even sure I was even good enough to sit in with them, right? So I go to the bar and asked them to sit in, and this is in Youngstown. And Youngstown's kind of can be a little rougher kind of feeling kind of place, And
this is a suburb in Ohio.
Yeah, and it was kind of blue collarish, steel mills are around and that kind of stuff. And this was kind of like a roadhouse style bar. And so I go up and ask the band after listening to them for a little bit, hey, do you guys let guys sit in, whatever? And they're like, yeah, sure, okay. I was like, wow, maybe he's right. I guess these guys are gonna let me sit in. And they were like busting my chops and like, well, don't you have a mic? Don't you have this? And I was like, oh, no, I just have my horn. And I assumed I could use their mics or whatever. And they were like, well, we're a band, and this, the mic is for a harmonica player. It was a little bit awkward, okay. But then they let me sit in, and they start playing, and they were digging it, and I was like, oh, cool, maybe I can really do this, maybe I'm good enough to hang with these guys who I thought were amazing players. Anyways, go through the process. I'm like sweating bullets, whatever, get to the end of the gig, and I'm talking to these guys after meeting them later in the night. I'm just like, so how do you guys know Matt? Matt was the name of my teacher, and I was telling I am taking lessons, and I was really, really green thinking back about it now. And they're like, who's Matt? And I was like, what? Matt, this guy teaching me lessons. And they're like, we don't know Matt. I'm like, you don't know Matt? And I'm like, it was starting to blow my mind. I'm like, wait a second, aren't you this band? And it was not the band that Matt had recommended me to go to. So it was a completely new band. They didn't know me. They didn't know the scene I was kind of in terms of like, this teacher recommends and says, hey, go sit in with my friends down here. It's very comfortable. So that was like, wow, that was like illuminating to me that you could sort of jump across this, new parallel universe, into something completely different. Again, I didn't die or whatever, because you just feel like you just can't do this. And it just opened up a new new lane for me. And I realized, oh, well, maybe it's not as hard as I thought to kind of do these kind of things and to continue to play, meet other musicians, and got myself in a band. And then I just continued on. You know.
And now you're gigging for internationally.
Well, now I've been playing forever now, but I
yeah,
mean,
but one thing that this lesson has taught me is you're comfortable being uncomfortable. And when you're uncomfortable, there's growth there.
Right.
Right.
Well, that's the thing. So, I knew that just in my heart. And so I love playing music so much. That's like, I know that in order to get better, I have to be willing at any moment to get up on stage and look like an idiot, like look a fool, be completely fish out of water. This can happen at any moment when you're on stage in front of the public playing music anywhere, even if you're in your own band that you've rehearsed and played with a million times. Like something can go wrong, you can look stupid, but you have to have this willingness and openness to be like, if I want to do this and I want to get better, and I always want to be like, the least competent person in the band or whatever, I don't want to be the best guy there because that's not fun for me. You just have to make a pact with yourself. It's okay. I'm going to look stupid. I might look stupid tonight.
Growth mindset. You never want to be the smartest person in the room, right?
Right. I mean,
that's my philosophy. Like, I want to learn from everyone, which is why I'm very excited that Jim is on the podcast. And I want to know, I met Jim in 2016 in the co-working space launch house here in Cleveland. And we started talking because he goes to Asia every winters. So I invited him to Asia, and he actually came to Cebu. That's for another podcast, but let's focus. Knowing Jim has been really inspirational and also has changed my life and also the company's trajectory. And we can go through that in the next 3 concepts that we're going to talk about.
Oh, really? Okay.
You know that.
Okay.
That's why you're here.
Okay.
Anyway, so you're really into innovation and technology, and Jim is also serves as my chief fractional innovation officer.
Right.
Who helps me, helps
strategy
me find
and innovation. Yeah.
Strategy and innovation, and helps me find my blind spots. So one of the things you're really interested is innovation and technology. As a matter of fact, you are an angel investor now. So talk about innovation and technology and how architects should be really paying attention to these things.
Okay. Just to fill in the gap a little bit, after I'd quit my last job, I don't know if we talked about it, about how I just became a consultant.
Okay, let's talk about that. Yeah.
So
Perfect.
out of the blue, so I had no plan to do any of this. And this I think informs part of how you should look at the world and be open and thinking about reinventing yourself and reinventing your business, right, at the same time. It was months later, early 2007, I just get a call out of the blue that someone wanted to know something about fiber optics. And it was a friend of a friend. And I thought, oh, it's just a friend of a friend. Except that they said, well, what are you doing tomorrow? And I said, well, they actually said, well, what are you doing right now? That was the phrase. I said, I'm talking to you. What are you doing, man? I was very casual with this person. And he's like, well, can you come in and talk to me tomorrow about this technology concepts? And I'm like, sure, why not? And it turned out to be a VP of technology at one of the big corporations here in Cleveland. And they wanted to hire me on the spot to work for their team once they understood, that I knew what I was doing. And I was still so, I guess, burnt out. I was like, there's no way I was taking a new job yet, and the guy was like a fast talking guy, and he's like, well, what are you doing right now? Are you consulting or whatever? And I heard the word consulting, and I was like, yeah, I'm consulting, that's what I'm doing.
And then you opened your consulting firm.
and then literally on the spot, it was like, I became a consultant somehow. And I had just pulled a domain name for myself. I was experimenting with like, well, let me see how to set up my own email or whatever. I was doing, I was futzing around a little bit at home over the last, few months in between, the end of 2006 and 2007. So luckily I had like my own domain name. So it looked sort of like I had maybe my own thing going on. And this is back in 2007.
And this is a major company.
This is back in 2007 when not everybody knew how to get their own website domain name email. This was kind of like early in the game. And now it's so crazy now that you can have just a Gmail address and people think you're okay. But back then you needed to have your oon, sort of website. Anyway, so that's how JIMIUM Group was born, my consulting company. And so I've been consulting over the years. And the people I like working with are people that work on advanced development projects or have cool mindsets or whatever. And I worked for that company for a while, but starting in 2006, I was bumping up against the wall again. It's like I was so frustrated. They weren't taking my advice. We worked on this technology. It was a crazy, integrated technological sensor for hydraulics, but they just weren't able to execute on it because of how a big company thinks, because of their managers, how they think. They just didn't really understand how to innovate, or they couldn't change their mindset about it. And it was very frustrating for me. And it's like, that kind of sent me on this path of, I want to crack through these crack their minds open so that they're open to change. They're open for innovation. I realized that, like, I'm a guy that's open to that. I still need to continue opening my mind, but this company's really not open to it. And most people aren't open to it. That's kind of mind blowing to me.
Yeah. Which is why innovation and technology are the things that architects need to pay attention to, because if architects just read Architecture Digest and Architect Magazine and Construction Magazine, you're not opening your mind. You're just doing everything that architects are doing. But if you look into innovation and technology and the stock market that you follow carefully, you can really stay ahead. Like an example that Jim gave me was like 3 years ago. He suggested that I write about solar energy and how electric vehicles are going to shape the way of the future in architecture. I wrote an article 3 years ago about parking lot design and how, it's going to change because of solar and electric vehicles. That was 3 years ago. Now I landed, one of my biggest clients is in solar panels, and we're designing a lot of parking lots. But this is the kind of thing that you need to be paying attention to, like what's going on outside the architecture space, or how can technology and innovation help you stay ahead of the game. So that's one example. There are multiple examples, but how can architects, where can they look? What resources can they?
Well, it's a great question. And I think it's more obvious now that most people should be thinking, specifically architects, should be thinking more about innovation technology. I mean, software's eating the world. We have all these sort of layers of society that are changing very quickly beneath our feet. It feels like big tectonic shifts are happening, right? And if you don't pay attention to those, I mean, you're just going to be sidelined. So, you have cryptocurrency, Bitcoin, in the finance world, you have, AR and VR in sort of the, in the CAD space or in the 3D spaces, as in your design world. You have AI coming on now. Like, these are all massive things that are just having massive changes internally for your organization or externally for your customers. And so it's like, it's almost a requirement now. And if you don't see that, if you don't feel that as an architect, and you're like, well, I just want to, play in my sketchbook and think about this kind of thing, that's cool. But if you're trying to run a firm and trying to not get steamrolled by these fast moving changes, I think you're going to have a harder time. And so, and you're going to miss out on the potential opportunities that are there. I mean, like we talk about all the time, like, success or change or whatever, it's not years away, it's decisions away, right? So it's like, if you just decide to like look into a new technology or look into this area that you maybe never had an interest in, but you realize, how you can apply it to yourself or to your business or for your clients, it's game changing.
What are your thoughts on AI? A lot of architects or the world is shaken up by how fast AI is moving. Like, what are your thoughts on that in terms of architecture and in general?
Well, first of all, I would say everybody calm down. Okay?
Including me.
Calm down, all right, about like, the singularity and how everybody's going to get laid off and all that kind of stuff. To put it in context, like when there's been massive changes in technology and industry over the years, and I've been watching it and been in the middle of it a long time. If you think about when fire was invented, when electricity was invented, when cars were invented, and I worked in the automotive industry, and when fiber optics, when lasers were invented in the 60s, and then telecom and fiber optics, like these are massive changes at every point. Everybody, all the society, all the news media, all the papers were talking about how everybody was going to lose their job and it was going to create chaos. And the reality is it creates more jobs and more opportunities. all these technologies have. Electricity did, fire did, okay, street lights did, automotive, cars did with gasoline. It creates more jobs and more opportunity, all these technologies. So that's the first point to get across. Now, so don't be afraid of it. That's my suggestion. Sure, it's going to disrupt a few things here and there, but we've seen that with the internet. The internet was disruptive, but it created massive amounts of opportunity. I mean, now you can reach out to 1 billion customers with a couple of clicks on your phone. I mean, it's incredible, right?
Yeah.
And so AI is going to kind of take this kind of stuff, I think, to the next level in terms of efficiency. So, technology basically creates deflation and creates efficiencies. That's kind of what it does, all technologies. And so that's how you should think about it. Like, you should think like, hey, maybe I can make my current process or my current employees more productive with AI tools. It's not going to replace a lot of things. It's going to augment and help you move faster. That's kind of how I look at it.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Architect My Business podcast. If you want more, head over to architectmybusiness.com for more episodes, show notes, and links to everything mentioned in this episode. Don't forget to catch our mini shows, Her Space every Wednesday, Ask Aya every Friday, and our main show, Architect My Business, released every Monday. If you enjoyed our episodes and want to hear more, please leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Your feedback really helps us grow. Stay tuned for the next episode. Bye!